Have you ever felt like the chaos around you keeps following you? No matter how many people you cut off, how many boundaries you try to set, or how much distance you put between yourself and the noise. You move cities. You change jobs. You delete numbers, block contacts, light sage, and whisper affirmations into the air. But still, they come, the manipulators, the emotional vampires, the people who somehow know just which buttons to press. And the worst part, you're doing your best. You're kind. You're trying to be better. You're trying to rise above. Yet chaos keeps showing up at your door like it knows your address, even when you've changed the locks. But what if the question is not, why do they keep showing up? What if the real question is, why am I still vibrating at a frequency that invites them in? Let that sink in for a moment, because the truth is hard, but it's liberating. What we attract is rarely about who we want to be. It's almost always about what we unconsciously allow. In Zen Buddhism, there's a teaching so subtle, most people hear it 100 times and never truly absorb it. It goes something like this. Your mind is the painter of all landscapes. Change your brushstroke and the world around you will shift. Translation: you are the creator, not of other people's behavior, but of your reception to it. Your inner world, your nervous system, your hidden expectations, they're like a beacon. They silently broadcast your emotional frequency, and others, especially toxic ones, respond like moths to flame. Not because you ask them to, but because some part of your energy says, yes, I'm available. Available to chaos, available to dysfunction, available to drama. Now, before you turn this into self-blame, pause. This is not about guilt. This is about awareness. Because the moment you shift from why do they hurt me to what is it within me that resonates with their chaos, you reclaim your power. That's where your real freedom begins. Science actually supports this ancient wisdom. Modern neuroscience calls it internal locus of control. The belief that what shapes your life isn't what happens outside of you, but how you process, interpret, and respond within. You see, people often think setting boundaries means learning clever comebacks, being assertive, standing your ground verbally. But those are surface level. True boundaries, the ones that truly change your life, aren't loud. They're energetic. They're invisible. They're embedded in your nervous system, in the way your breath flows under pressure, in the stillness you carry when the world tries to pull you into chaos. This is why monks can sit in silence among wild, shouting crowds and not be disturbed. It's not because they've escaped the world. It's because their inner world isn't entangled with it. There's a powerful Zen koan that goes like this. A monk was once walking through the marketplace. A drunk man staggered toward him, yelling insults, trying to provoke a reaction. The monk simply smiled, bowed slightly, and kept walking. Another man who witnessed this shouted after him, "Why didn't you respond? Why did you let him disrespect you like that?" The monk replied, "If someone offers you a gift and you refuse to take it, who does it belong to? Let that sit with you, because that is nervous system mastery. That is emotional sovereignty. And that is where your liberation begins. Not in cutting people off with rage, not in screaming for respect, but in becoming so deeply anchored that nothing and no one can pull you out of your peace." So ask yourself, not with judgment but with deep curiosity, what part of me is still waiting for chaos? What emotion am I still addicted to? What identity am I still holding onto that gets reinforced through conflict? Because here's the paradox most people never see. Toxic people aren't drawn to your kindness. They're drawn to your reactivity. They don't care about your light. They care about your cracks, the parts of you that still need validation, that still seek approval, that still believe you need to prove your worth. But the moment you stop seeking their recognition, the moment you stop needing to be seen by people committed to misunderstanding you, everything shifts, And here's the best part. You don't need to scream. You don't need to post dramatic goodbyes. You don't even need to explain yourself. You just stop vibrating on that level. You let silence do the work. You let stillness realign your system. You start breathing slower, walking softer, observing more, and reacting less. And like smoke in the wind, chaos starts to fade, not because you fought it, but because you outgrew it. So here's the invitation right now, right here. Instead of asking, how do I stop toxic people from finding me? Ask yourself, what do I need to heal so that I no longer attract them? That is your starting point. That is your first breath into peace. And once you step into that awareness, the rest of the path will begin to unfold. Because when you change how you show up energetically, the entire universe recalibrates how it shows up for you. Now let's take this understanding even deeper. Because what happens inside your brain when you shift your focus, when you stop feeding the chaos, holds the next key to true transformation. Let's walk there together. You might think that setting boundaries starts with a bold conversation, a strong no, or a line drawn in the sand. But what if I told you that your boundaries were never about words to begin with? They begin in your body. More specifically, your nervous system. Imagine this. You're in a room, someone steps just a little too close. They haven't said anything threatening. They haven't crossed a social line, but something in you tenses. Your jaw tightens, your shoulders rise, your breath shortens. That's your nervous system speaking, before your mouth even has a chance to. It's the ancient intelligence that's been evolving for millions of years, designed to detect danger before logic can catch up. And in our modern world, where danger doesn't usually come with fangs or fists, but with passive aggression, manipulation, or emotional overwhelm, the nervous system still fires off those ancient alarms. And here's the truth no one told you. If your nervous system doesn't feel safe, you can't set real boundaries, no matter how eloquent your words might be. Let's go deeper. Boundaries aren't about keeping people out. They're about keeping yourself intact. They're not about pushing the world away. They're about knowing where you end and someone else begins. That knowing doesn't come from a script. It comes from embodied awareness. So what does that mean? It means your boundary isn't the sentence you rehearse in your head. It's the sensation you feel in your gut when something feels wrong. It's the moment your chest tightens when someone starts to demand more than you can give. It's the flutter in your stomach that whispers, "This isn't safe." Too often we override those messages. We've been taught to be polite, agreeable, accommodating, even when our body is screaming no. And when you do that often enough, your system gets confused. It stops trusting its own signals. You stop trusting yourself. That's where the real danger lies, not in confrontation, but in disconnection. So how do you build boundaries that begin in the nervous system? Start by listening. Pause when your breath shortens. Take note when your jaw clenches or your chest tightens. Don't rush to fix it. Don't drown it out with logic. Just notice. Because every time you tune in, you're training your system to trust its own intelligence. You're saying to your body, "I hear you, I believe you, I've got you." That's how real boundaries are built, from the inside out. You might be wondering, but how can I hold a boundary without falling into anxiety or fear? Here's the secret. You don't hold a boundary with force. You become a boundary through regulation. Your calm nervous system is your best defense, because a regulated body isn't easily manipulated. A settled mind isn't easily provoked, and a grounded heart isn't easily pulled into chaos. When someone tries to cross a line you haven't vocalized, your body still knows. And if you're attuned to it, so will you. This isn't about being on high alert. It's about being anchored in your own inner signal. You don't have to fight to be respected. You only need to embody what safety feels like. And from that place, Your no becomes unshakable, not because it's loud, but because it's true. Here's something else no one talks about. People can sense your boundaries long before you say a word. It's not magic, it's co-regulation. Your nervous system is in constant conversation with theirs. It's why some people don't dare cross you without you ever having to raise your voice. And why others always seem to push your limits, no matter how clearly you speak. Because if your nervous system is dysregulated, uncertain, ungrounded, afraid, your boundary will always be negotiable. But if you're rooted, steady, attuned, your presence becomes your protection. And what a powerful shift that is. It changes how you walk into a room. It transforms how you love, how you parent, how you lead. You stop leaking energy into proving your worth. You stop performing politeness at the cost of your peace. Instead, you show up whole, clear, sovereign. So maybe it's time to stop memorizing boundary scripts. Maybe it's time to stop waiting for the perfect words. Maybe it's time to drop into the body, the only place where your boundaries truly begin. Because when you heal the nervous system, you no longer have to explain your boundaries. You simply are them, and those who cannot meet you there will quietly fall away. But those who can, those who feel the calm of your rooted presence, they'll lean in, not to invade, but to honor the space you've claimed. And that is where a new way of being begins, a way of living where peace isn't negotiated. It's embodied. Have you ever watched a storm rise from nothing? One cloud bumps into another, the wind stirs, and suddenly, lightning crashes. That's exactly how chaos is born inside you. One thought bumps into another, one emotion collides with a trigger, and before you know it, you're caught in a storm of your own reactivity. But here's the truth no one tells you. Chaos doesn't always need a big event to explode. Sometimes it's just your inability to pause, to breathe, to choose silence when your ego is screaming for retaliation. Reactivity is the spark, the gasoline, the wildfire. It's your need to be right, your habit of defending yourself, your urge to fix others, prove something, or have the last word. Every time you react impulsively, without presence, you feed the very chaos you claim you want to escape. And let's be honest, most of our reactivity isn't even about the present moment. It's a backlog of unresolved emotions, old wounds, ancient echoes of pain that never had a voice, so they show up now, disguised as urgency. You think you're angry about a text message, but really, it's your childhood abandonment flaring up. You think you're offended by what someone said, but deep down, it's your fear of being unseen. Silence, on the other hand, is the oxygen mask your nervous system is begging for. Not the silence of suppression, but the silence of sacred stillness. The kind of silence that listens before it speaks, that watches before it moves, that breathes before it burns. In silence, you're not withdrawing from life. You're reclaiming your power to respond instead of react. When you don't react, you disrupt the pattern, the karmic loop of pain trying to find more pain to dance with. And that, my friend, is how you start to starve chaos, not with control, but with stillness. You deny it the drama it craves. You stop being the echo chamber it feeds on. Reactivity thrives in unconsciousness. Silence thrives in awareness. But make no mistake, choosing silence is not easy. It's uncomfortable. Your ego will beg you to speak up, clap back, make them pay. Your mind will write entire novels of comebacks, proving your righteousness. And in those moments, your greatest strength is restraint. Your greatest weapon is the pause. Not every feeling is meant to be acted on. Not every thought deserves your voice. There's a profound difference between internal noise and internal knowing. Reactivity is noise. Silence lets you hear the knowing beneath it. When you stop reacting, you become like a still lake, unshaken, reflecting truth without distortion. people start to feel it. They can't manipulate you, provoke you, or pull you into their emotional whirlwinds anymore. Not because you've become passive, but because you've become sovereign. This is how monks train their minds. Not to fight chaos, but to stop fueling it. Their silence is not a lack of opinion, it's a mastery of direction. A refusal to waste energy on battles that are only projections of the unhealed self. Think about it. When was the last time you said something you later regretted, just because you felt you had to respond right away? Now, imagine what would have happened if you had paused, if you had listened instead of reacted, if you had given the moment the silence it deserved instead of rushing to fill it with noise. Silence isn't avoidance, it's alignment. It's what happens when the soul says, I don't need to win this, I need to be free. And freedom, true freedom, is found in the spaces between your triggers and your choices, between your emotions and your actions, between your fear and your truth. So start there, in the pause, in the breath, in the sacred silence that doesn't need to defend or prove but simply is. And from that stillness, something powerful begins to rise, something wiser than reactivity, stronger than chaos, and far more beautiful than control. Let's keep going. Because there's a deeper truth waiting, not in the noise, but in the next unfolding. Imagine this. Your mind is not a stone slab, fixed, rigid, and carved in destiny. Instead, it's more like wet clay, ever-shifting, endlessly moldable. Every thought you think, every emotion you nurture, every belief you hold is shaping that clay. That's the magic and the danger of neuroplasticity. It's the reason why some people rise from trauma with incredible strength, and why others sink deeper into the same patterns that hurt them. Your brain is not loyal to your well-being. It's loyal to what you feed it. If you constantly focus on fear, your brain becomes excellent at fear. If you obsess over self-doubt, your brain will reinforce pathways that keep you questioning your worth. But if you train your mind to notice peace, to return to stillness, to find safety in silence, your brain learns that too. This is not wishful thinking. This is biology. You see, neurons that fire together wire together. That means every time you focus on a thought, whether it's I'm not safe or I'm grounded in this moment, you are reinforcing a connection in the brain. Think it enough and it becomes automatic. It becomes who you are. That's why your focus is your real power, not your willpower, not your plans, but your attention. Your attention is sacred. It's what sculpts your nervous system. It's what sculpts you. This is why most attempts at transformation fail. People try to change their behavior without changing the attention patterns that drive it. You don't just stop overthinking. You train your brain, one moment at a time, to become less addicted to mental noise. You don't just stop reacting. You refocus your energy away from the source of chaos and return it to your breath, your body, your awareness. And here's the secret most people overlook. The brain changes through repetition and emotion. That means it's not enough to just think positive thoughts once or twice. You need to feel them deeply. Rehearse them often. Let them soak into your body like sunlight into skin. When you do this, your nervous system begins to shift, not in theory but in practice. You start responding to life from a new place. Let's get practical. If you want more peace, stop asking, how do I fix my life? And start asking, where is my attention going right now? Notice the thoughts that drain you. Notice the feelings you rehearse every day. Are they helping you grow or are they keeping you small? This is not about blaming yourself. It's about reclaiming the steering wheel. Now think about the media you consume, the people you surround yourself with, even the words you use in your inner dialogue. They all become practice for your brain. If you want to wire peace, you must practice peace. If you want to wire confidence, you must practice confidence. It may feel fake at first, but your brain doesn't care. Repetition creates reality. And here's the beautiful twist. The more you practice redirecting your focus, the easier it becomes. Just like muscles in the body, your neural circuits get stronger with use. That means you're not stuck. Even if you've spent decades reacting to fear, spiraling in anxiety, or clinging to control, your brain can still change. You can still become the person who feels safe in stillness, who doesn't chase noise, who doesn't need the world to calm down in order to find calm. But don't mistake this for a quick fix. Neuroplasticity is powerful, yes, but it takes consistency. You have to show up for yourself even on the days when it feels pointless, especially on those days. Because every quiet moment you give your brain is a vote for the version of you that's steady, clear, and grounded. And eventually, that version becomes second nature. So take a breath. Really, do it now. Notice how your body softens when you pay attention to it. Notice how a single breath can interrupt an entire storm of thought. That's not a small thing. That's how it begins. That's how it always begins. And the more you begin, the more it becomes who you are. Because the nervous system doesn't need your words. It needs your attention. And when that attention is trained, something else happens. You begin to move through the world not as a reactor but as an observer. Not feeding chaos but diffusing it. And that changes everything. Let's explore how. Have you ever wondered why certain patterns seem to repeat in your life? Whether in relationships, finances, or even your inner battles. Maybe you keep attracting unavailable partners. Or maybe your efforts to grow always seem to collapse just before a breakthrough. What if I told you this isn't random? What if life is not reacting to you, but reflecting from you? The energy you carry, the emotional vibration you live in, the silent state your nervous system is constantly humming at, that's what shapes the world around you. Not your affirmations, not your vision boards, not the words you say, but the energy you are. That's what the universe responds to. That's what other people feel, whether they realize it or not. And that's what keeps pulling the same types of experiences right back into your orbit. We don't attract what we want. We attract what we are. Let that sink in. You could crave peace, desire love, aim for abundance. But if your inner state is dominated by anxiety, fear, and unworthiness, then what you'll keep magnetizing is exactly that. Chaos, lack, and disconnection. Energy doesn't lie. It always tells the truth of who we are being, not who we claim to be. This is why your healing journey isn't just about what you do. It's about who you're becoming. And who you're becoming starts with the energetic patterns that dominate your nervous system. When your energy is anchored in fear, even subtly, you will repel safety and invite instability. When your energy is soaked in scarcity, even while you say positive things, you will continue to find yourself in situations of not enough. This is the law of energetic alignment, and it's not mystical, it's biological. Your nervous system is like a tuning fork. It emits signals, vibrations that shape your mood, your posture, your voice, your breath, and your unconscious choices. The people you attract, the jobs you say yes to, the boundaries you don't set, the ways you abandon yourself. It's all downstream from your inner vibration. So how do we change what we attract? We change what we embody. That starts with stillness, with noticing. When your energy is grounded, the world softens around you. You stop chasing validation and start attracting truth. You stop trying to fix others and start radiating the calm that invites others to heal themselves. When you no longer live in reaction, you create space for creation. And that energy, that's magnetic. It's not about being high vibe all the time. It's about being coherent, aligned, present. It's about syncing your breath, your nervous system, your thoughts, your values, and your presence into a unified field. People may not know how to name it, but they'll feel it. The ones meant for your journey will recognize you, not by your words, but by your energy. Because just like a radio only tunes into the station it's aligned with, life only reflects back the vibration you're living in. Here's the truth most people miss. Your energy teaches others how to treat you before your words ever do. If your energy is apologetic, disconnected, or frantic, it will tell the world, "I'm not safe. I'm not worthy. I'm unsure." And the world will mirror that back to you. But when your energy is rooted in presence, when your breath is slow, your eyes are clear, your back is upright, there's a silent authority that radiates from you. You don't need to prove. You don't need to chase. The world responds to that kind of clarity. This is why so many people say, "Nothing changes, no matter how hard I try." Because they're trying to change outcomes from the outside, when what actually needs shifting is the frequency they're living in. Healing is not just about processing the past, it's about recalibrating your energy in the present. So how do you begin? Start with the body, the breath, the nervous system. Your body holds your energy blueprint. Your breath is your access point to it. Want to shift your vibration? Breathe slower, speak less, move with awareness. Begin treating your nervous system like the control center that it is, because every experience you attract is being filtered through it. Imagine walking into a room and your very presence shifts the air without saying a word. That's what energy alignment can do. It makes you a tuning fork for calm, a lighthouse in storms, a field where truth can finally bloom. You don't need to chase love when you are love. You don't need to beg for abundance when you radiate worth. The world simply meets you where you've already met yourself. So the next time you ask, "Why does this keep happening to me?" Pause, take a breath, and gently ask, "What vibration am I living in?" Because the moment you align your inner world, everything outside starts to align too. And from that grounded place, something far more powerful begins to emerge, something we're about to explore next. Let's talk about the nervous system's true superpower, the one that can rewrite the patterns you thought were permanent. There's a quiet revolution that begins when you stop chasing, stop fighting, stop feeding the noise. It's the moment you realize what you don't give your attention to begins to lose its grip on your life. This isn't just poetic. It's neuroscience, it's ancient wisdom, it's the law of reality mirrored back by your awareness. Your attention is a currency. Where you invest it grows, where you withhold it weakens. And for far too long, we've been unintentionally feeding what we wish would disappear: anxiety, resentment, self-doubt, even pain. Here's the hard truth. Whatever we keep rehearsing in the mind, we keep reinforcing in the body. Mindfulness isn't about forcing peace. It's about stopping the rehearsal of war. Think of a garden. If you water the weeds every day and neglect the flowers, guess which one will take over? The mind is no different. Every thought you entertain, every emotion you dwell on, every narrative you repeat, you are watering it. Now, mindfulness is not passivity. It's not spiritual bypassing. It's not just ignore it and it'll go away. No, it's deeper. It's the sacred act of becoming aware without feeding, of noticing the storm but not stepping into it. You feel the anger rise, but instead of reacting, you pause. You witness it. You breathe. And suddenly the fire doesn't spread. It fades. That's the power of not feeding. Mindfulness is the gentle but radical rebellion against unconscious living. It says, "I will no longer let my automatic patterns drive my destiny. I will not feed the wolf of fear just because it's loud. I will not feed the story of I'm not enough just because it's familiar. I will sit here, in stillness. I will see it, but I will not serve it." And the beauty, what you stop feeding doesn't just fade, it transforms. Emotions, when allowed to pass through you without judgment, complete their cycle. Stories, when not given energy, unravel into clarity. Wounds, when not constantly picked at, begin to heal. You've probably noticed it yourself. The more you ruminate on a mistake, the bigger it becomes. The more you argue in your head, the more exhausted you feel. But the moment you bring awareness, just simple, spacious presence, you change the entire energetic equation. You are no longer a puppet of reactivity. You're the observer. And in the stillness of that observation, chaos loses its fuel. This is the subtle magic of mindfulness. It's not flashy. It won't impress your ego. But it will liberate your nervous system. It will give you back your choice. When you can sit with discomfort without immediately fixing it, judging it, or escaping it, you reclaim your power. And it all begins by asking yourself in every moment, am I feeding this or freeing it? So many people try to change their life by doing more effort, more hustle, more control. But transformation doesn't always come from addition. Often it comes from subtraction, from no longer feeding what keeps you stuck. Letting it fade, letting it pass, letting it dissolve, not because you forced it, but because you stopped energizing it. That's how suffering ends. And when you master this, when you stop feeding the chaos, you create the perfect space for something else to bloom: clarity, peace, truth. That's what we're stepping into next. Because when silence becomes fertile, intuition starts to speak. There's a kind of quiet power that comes when you stop looking outward for validation and instead turn your gaze inward, toward your own path, your own growth, your own becoming. In a world obsessed with comparison, competition, and constant connectivity, choosing to walk your own path can feel countercultural. But this is exactly where inner peace resides, not in keeping up, not in pleasing others, but in honoring your own rhythm. When we constantly measure ourselves against others, comparing our timelines, our bodies, our relationships, our careers, we unconsciously feed feelings of lack. We tell ourselves we're behind, we're not enough, we should be somewhere else by now. And with every comparison, our energy leaks out of us, scattered in 1,000 directions, drained by distractions that don't actually belong to us. But the moment you withdraw that energy, the moment you pull your awareness back inward, something remarkable happens. You reclaim your power. This is what minding your own path really means. It's not about selfishness. It's not about isolation. It's about self-responsibility. It's about choosing not to live life on autopilot, dictated by the noise of the crowd or the expectations of others. There's beauty in silence. There's wisdom in solitude. And when you finally become still enough to listen, not to the world, but to yourself, you begin to hear the quiet whisper of your own soul guiding you forward. You start noticing what actually feels aligned versus what just feels familiar. You begin honoring your body when it asks you to rest. You start trusting your intuition even when it doesn't make logical sense. And perhaps most importantly, you learn to let others walk their own journey, without judgment, without rescue, without interference. Because here's a truth most people overlook. Trying to manage or fix someone else's path is often just a distraction from facing your own. And every time you shift your gaze away from your lane, you risk veering off course in your own life. When you truly mind your own path, you no longer react to the drama around you. You stop trying to win arguments that don't matter. You don't chase people. You don't force outcomes. You don't try to control how others see you. Instead, you move with quiet confidence. You speak when it serves truth, not when it serves ego. You set boundaries without needing to explain them. You listen more than you speak, and when you do speak, it comes from depth, not defense. And ironically, as you pull away from trying to fit in, you begin to truly belong to yourself. This inner belonging becomes a magnet. It draws in people, situations, and opportunities that resonate with your truest frequency. Not the version of you that's performing for the world, but the version of you that's fully present, rooted and real. Walking your own path doesn't mean the road will always be easy, but it will be authentic. And authenticity is what your nervous system craves. It's where healing happens. It's where alignment begins. And you'll find that the more attention you give to your own growth, the less reactive you become to the chaos outside you. Because the truth is, most of that chaos was never yours to begin with. You just picked it up, like static, by tuning into the wrong frequencies. Now you're tuning inward, and what you find there, beneath the noise, beneath the stories, is stillness. And from stillness, you create a life that feels like home. Not a life that looks good on paper, not a life that impresses others, but a life that feels deeply true to you. And that is the real beauty of minding your own path. Because when you stop chasing someone else's version of success, you start embodying your own definition of freedom. And that freedom isn't loud. It doesn't need to be. It's quiet, steady, and unshakably yours. And as you walk further inwards, something else begins to shift. You realize that attention is your greatest currency. Where you place it determines what grows in your life. And so, as we begin to explore the next unfolding, how healing isn't about fixing brokenness, but rather remembering wholeness, you'll see how returning to your own lane isn't just powerful. It's sacred. Shall we continue? There's a common misunderstanding, one that's deeply ingrained in our culture and language, that if you're detached, you must be cold, heartless, or indifferent. That detachment means not caring. But true detachment, the kind taught by ancient wisdom and confirmed by the most grounded spiritual minds, has nothing to do with being cold. In fact, it's the complete opposite. Real detachment is pure clarity. It's the capacity to see things as they are, not as our emotions distort them to be. Let's look at why this distinction is so vital. Most people operate in emotional entanglement. When someone says something hurtful, they absorb it. When things don't go their way, they collapse emotionally. When someone they love pulls away, they panic. This is not love. This is not connection. This is attachment, and attachment clouds clarity. Detachment, on the other hand, allows you to stay grounded even when the winds of change blow hard. It doesn't mean you stop loving. It means your love is no longer based on possession or fear. You're no longer trying to control or fix. You're simply present, fully aware, fully awake. Imagine a clear lake. When the wind is calm, you can see all the way to the bottom. But when a storm comes, the water is disturbed and everything becomes muddy. Our minds are like that. When we are emotionally entangled, we can't see clearly. We react. We suffer. We project our past onto the present. But when we practice detachment, not withdrawal but observation, we allow the sediment to settle. Suddenly, we can see what's really happening beneath the surface. We can respond instead of react. We can choose instead of chase. We can witness instead of control. This is why so many Buddhist monks emphasize non-attachment, not because life should be cold and sterile, but because true love, true peace, and true power only arise when we are no longer enslaved by our desires and fears. And this clarity affects everything. How we communicate, how we grieve, how we make decisions, how we set boundaries. When you're detached, you can love without losing yourself. You can walk away without resentment. You can hear criticism without crumbling. You can celebrate someone else's success without comparing it to your own. Most importantly, detachment gives you back your freedom, the ability to live from the still, centered core of who you are, not from the chaotic winds of circumstance. This doesn't mean you stop feeling. It means you're no longer dominated by feelings. You experience emotions like waves. You ride them, you observe them, but you don't drown in them. You begin to realize, not everything deserves a reaction. Not every battle needs to be fought, and not every trigger is a call to war. It's often a call to look inward. You've probably noticed by now, especially if you've truly practiced the tools from the previous chapters, that your nervous system is more regulated, your focus more stable, and your energy more aligned. Now with detachment, the clarity that arises allows you to see what's yours to carry and what never belonged to you in the first place. And that is freedom in its most radiant form. So the next time someone accuses you of being too distant or too cold, take a breath, look within, and ask yourself, am I really cold or am I simply clear? Am I really indifferent, or am I just no longer willing to abandon myself for connection? Because the truth is, detachment is not the end of love or empathy. It is the beginning of both. When you are no longer trying to fix, control, or mold the world to fit your expectations, you begin to truly see it and the people in it for what they are. And that kind of vision is sacred. Let's keep walking. There's still one more doorway to open, one more misunderstanding to dissolve. Because clarity doesn't just transform your emotional world, it transforms the story you live by. And sometimes, that means learning to say goodbye to the version of yourself you thought you had to be. There's something mysteriously powerful about silence, so powerful that it often gets mistaken for emptiness or even weakness. But silence, when fully embraced, becomes the sacred space where transformation begins. In the world's noise, silence is not absence, it is presence. It is the soil from which the most authentic version of you can grow. Have you ever noticed how seeds do their most important work buried beneath the surface, in complete stillness? The most vibrant forests begin in silence, underground, away from any light or recognition. So do you. Your soul is not sculpted through constant stimulation or approval. It is refined when you are alone with yourself, free from distraction, still enough to hear the whisper beneath your thoughts. Growth doesn't announce itself. It doesn't come with fireworks or applause. It happens in the quiet moments, when you pause before reacting, when you sit with your emotions instead of running from them, when you observe your thoughts without identifying with them. That space, between the impulse and the response, that is the birthplace of evolution. Stillness gives you the clarity to see what is real and what is a projection. It teaches you the difference between your conditioned mind and your true self. In silence, the masks fall away, the roles dissolve, and what's left is something raw and real, your essence. But we resist this. Why? Because silence confronts us with the parts of ourselves we've been avoiding. It reveals our coping mechanisms, our addictions to chaos, and our false identities. It shows us how much we rely on distraction to avoid sitting with the truth. But if we can remain still just a little longer, something remarkable happens. The noise quiets, the wounds breathe, and wisdom begins to rise. Silence isn't just the absence of sound, it's the gateway to self-regulation. It soothes the nervous system, calms the mind, and grounds you back into your body. And in that groundedness, you find power, not the kind that dominates, but the kind that sustains. The kind that doesn't need to prove because it simply is. In stillness, you begin to recognize that you are not broken. You are becoming. All the noise around you, people's opinions, external expectations, the rush to fix yourself, is like static on a radio. Silence helps you tune back to your own frequency, to remember that you've always had everything you needed within. And here's the truth few talk about. The world won't always support your stillness. It's addicted to speed, performance, and noise. But your healing doesn't depend on the world catching up. It depends on you slowing down, even if just for a breath, even if just for a moment. That's all it takes to return home to yourself. True growth doesn't look like striving, it looks like surrender. It's not becoming someone new, it's shedding what was never truly you in the first place. Silence isn't retreat, it's regeneration. And when you learn to dwell there, when you make stillness your sacred ritual, you'll notice something miraculous. The more time you spend in quiet, the louder your inner truth becomes. The more you rest in silence, the more magnetic your presence becomes. You no longer chase alignment, you become alignment. You no longer seek validation, you embody worth. Eventually, you'll realize that silence didn't just rebuild you, it revealed you. And from that still, unwavering place, you finally become ready not to return to the noise, but to live above it. Because from here, something even more profound begins to stir. There comes a moment when the spiritual path stops being about improvement and becomes about release. Release of the need to fix everything. Release of the urge to argue. Release of the fight. Because here's the ultimate truth. You don't have to fight toxicity. You simply have to stop feeding it with your energy. Not all battles are worth your breath, and not all storms are yours to calm. The toxic person, the chaotic workplace, the drama-filled friendship, none of them require your reaction. They require your absence, not out of spite, but out of self-respect. When you evolve, when you rise, when you soften into awareness and sharpen into wisdom, you simply outgrow what no longer resonates. You don't need to burn bridges. You simply walk a little faster on your path, and one day you look back and realize those people, those patterns, those pains didn't follow you because they couldn't. You became too quiet for them to reach, too steady to be shaken, too rooted to be moved. Growth isn't always loud. Often it's a subtle shift, a change in what triggers you, what drains you, what no longer feels worth chasing. You start prioritizing peace over performance, presence over pleasing, truth over tolerance. This final teaching, perhaps the most liberating of all, is this: you are not here to fight toxicity. You are here to rise beyond it. So next time someone tries to pull you into the same old conflict, smile gently and don't engage. Not because you're weak, but because you're finally strong enough to walk away. And now take a moment to breathe. Let all that you've just heard settle deep into your nervous system, into your bones, into your breath. This wasn't just a teaching, it was a mirror for the soul ready to remember its stillness, a whisper for the heart ready to return to peace. If this journey has stirred something within you, if the silence, the awareness, the soft reminders echoed through your own life path, then maybe it's time to walk this path together. Subscribe to Zen Buddhism Wisdom, not just for more words, but for more moments of reflection, for depth, for grounding, for realignment. And if this resonated with your soul, share it, not for numbers, but because someone else somewhere is still fighting storms they could outgrow. Let them know it's okay to rise quietly. It's okay to walk away. It's okay to choose peace. Until next time, breathe deeply, walk slowly, and remember, the most powerful transformation happens in stillness, and the most awakened souls no longer react. They simply be.